what was life like before the accident?
I would say picturesque. Then I just got put onto the conveyor belt of life. Nice job, nice house, I'm building fences in the garden. In my head, the sun's always shining. Around the corner on the wrong side of the road comes a blue BMW with the roof down. And I just said, oh, watch out. As soon as that happened, bang, head on with us, wrong side of the road. He's on his phone. We flip over a number of times, land up upside down in a ditch. It was incredibly lucky that we weren't too badly hurt, but there's screaming, there's blood, there's smoke. We could have died today.
You had no authority, no brand, no leads, no followers, whatever it is. How did you end up transitioning into podcast guesting, starting a business?
Luckily, the business that I worked in, we would do 500 million monthly views on those websites that Future owned. I'd worked on billion-pound projects.
I want to start off with, not with what most people ask you. Most people probably ask you about the car accident. I'm more curious about before that, because obviously you've been very open and public about your car accident, but I'm curious, what was life like before the accident? What did life look like then?
So life looked, I would say, picturesque. It was what I thought I should be going towards. I was on the conveyor belt of life. Both my parents are police officers. They never sort of changed their role. They did the same job for 30 years. So promotion and the pressure of a job really wasn't something in our family. It was like, get a job, get a mortgage. I was the first one to go to uni, so that was a really cool thing. Then I just got put onto the conveyor belt of life. In my first sort of corporate job after uni, I was an analyst for a pub company. There's 200 pubs. Each one was £1 million a year turnover business. So you've got all of that data to look at. It's also about beer and it's about hospitality. It's fun. I like that job. Then I went on to this company called Future, which is the world's largest digital publisher, which it gave me so much experience. You know, I was hired by a CRO of a £4 billion company to be this project exec that was going to learn everything and go on to bigger things. And in the meantime, my fiance now, she is an interior designer. So we were buying houses with whatever cash we could get, renovating them. So you can imagine all this happening. COVID happens, but we're in our little bubble. Got a nice job, nice house.
2020.
2020, yeah. Nice job, nice house. I'm building fences in the garden. In my head, the sun's always shining. Everything was as it should be, but there was always an inkling of we could probably do more, and we haven't traveled enough since uni. We did 40 countries up to uni, and then we sort of just stopped and got into this conveyor belt of life. So it was a picturesque thing that I thought at the time was like, I've made it, but there was an inkling of, is this it for the next 40 years?
It's interesting because you've technically answered a few of the different questions I had. A, which is, not everyone on the planet has a car accident. And not everyone that has a car accident changes their job. And the reason why I was curious about life before is because that clearly was a trigger that triggered you to do something. But I always question, was there a question before the car accident about, shall I pack all of this in, or was there not?
There wasn't. I've always been a very ambitious person. So all the way through school, through uni, in my fake gap year, I didn't do anything other than just work, really. I tried to start businesses. I always thought I can do more. There's something I can do with my own value and skills. I could buy t-shirts, I could clean gardens, There was some sort of thing in there I wanted to do. I studied business and then I did a master's in economics, always looking for a way into business. But obviously that puts you into a corporate place. You can't really learn entrepreneurship at uni from people that hadn't ever started businesses. So I think there was just an ambition within me that I thought I could do something very naively. I didn't really have any entrepreneurs around me that I was able to see that there was another path. I just felt like, surely I'm not now going to do this 9 to 5 for the next 30 years like my parents did and hopefully save up for a holiday in the summer. So there was no real super pain. It was just, I think a lot of people need a trigger to go, you could do it, you could go this way, or you should probably just try something else for a few years.
You know what? Part of me loves that answer because I'll be very honest with you. I almost had like a loaded question there because I thought, surely you have an accident and you've already thought about a thing you never did. Now you had an accident. You're like, I need to do that thing. And you're saying, I was actually very fulfilled. So you was very fulfilled. You wasn't even questioning the path really. Like you had like backside of your head questions, but you weren't really thinking, I need to leave this job. I'm unfulfilled. I hate it. You actually liked it.
But fulfillment is a good point. I don't know if I was fulfilled. I think I probably wasn't fulfilled. I was just on that pathway where I was busy enough not to think of other things, because you think you work a 9 to 5 job, you go to CrossFit in the evening.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Forget about what you know now, like you're traveling. I mean, I'm sure you've increased the countries. You said 40 back before the accident, but if you were to speak from, Freddie pre-accident, in all of that, did you think you were fulfilled?
Yes, I probably did. I probably thought, I've ticked the boxes. Bearing in mind I was 26, 27 when the car accident happened. So I, at that age, was fulfilled. I would say, ahead of a lot of what my friends were doing, comparably. People that I was around, all of us had jobs, none of us had businesses. So I thought, okay, I'm doing fine. Compared to my friends and my family and my cousins and whatever, I'm in a good place. But there's always an inkling with me that that's not enough. Even now, and there will always be something that I have to deal with.
Where does that come from?
It's a great question. I was asked this recently, and I think it comes from, and I don't mean to slander my parents at all. They're lovely people, and they did great for me and my brother when we were growing up. But I just think there wasn't enough ambition shown to us when we were growing up. They had these jobs where they stayed as constables in the police. So it's the base level. When you come in, you then specialise, but you have to get promoted to become a sergeant, whatever. They didn't do that. So they specialised, treated it more as a vocation. But what that meant was that there was arguments about money at home. That's what I remember. And so for me, I was always like, why wouldn't we just try a little bit, not harder, but to do something more, achieve something else, so that we don't have to worry about money. We can go on more than one holiday. We can not worry if the car breaks down, that kind of thing. So I think actually the ambition comes from the inaction of people that I was around when I was growing up in those developmental stages.
I actually take an opposite approach. I don't think it's slander at all, because really, had your parents have been the way you wanted them to be, you wouldn't have been the way you are today. So it sounds like they did you a favor.
In the same way that if I was given loads of stuff, I probably wouldn't work as hard as I do today.
Do you know people that were given a lot of stuff and are lazy?
Yeah.
Me too. So thank you to your parents, obviously, because you're here. You're making things happen. You're helping people. So then I'm glad that we've set the stage there, because sometimes you hear these stories and people are like, oh, I was in the rain and it was cold and I was there. And this is not it. And I like that for once. Actually, part of me was even questioning this whole podcast. I'm like, everyone that comes on here has had like this crazy story beforehand. Then you're like, no, I was happy. I was fulfilled. I had a good job. I was earning 100K a year. And then the accident happens.
Yeah.
So take me through that day. Not just the accident, but take me through the day.
So I was, what day of it? It was the 12th of May. So whatever, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever. Woke up in the morning. We had very nearly finished renovating this little bungalow just outside Bath in the UK, the southwest UK. Backed onto fields, small-ish garden, but there's nothing behind. So you could just see the world. I was working from home. I was in my third year at this company, so I was working from home. I hadn't really been to the office that much. Me and my boss were running the whole sort of product department. So the business was doing, over 300 grand a day from just us 60 in our little team in the e-commerce space. There's 4,000 plus in the team. It's a massive company. In the morning, I woke up, went to the fields, walked the dog, was on lots of calls in the morning with my team. We're operating on different levels to do with affiliate marketing. I think Amazon Prime Day was coming up in July, coming up soon.
May. Yeah.
Exactly. And so at about 12:30 in the afternoon, I was on the phone with my boss. We did walking meetings because we felt that we were most creative. I remember saying to him, I've got to go in a minute. I'm going to take my lunch break. I'm going to drive over to my fiance's dad's house, where I'm going to sign to be a trustee of a charity that him and my brother-in-law are setting up, which I'm still a trustee of today. And so he was like, no worries, I'll speak to you in half an hour. We'll just pick up the call, exactly where we were. Lovely day, blue sky, some clouds in the sky, but dry, warm. Hopped in the car. I said to my fiance, who's called Antonia, I was like, I'm going to go to your dad's. I've got to sign this piece of paper. She was like, well, I'd love to see my dad. I'll pop over with you. Why not? I said, okay, let's put the dog in the car as well. He was a year old at the time. And she was like, no, just leave him here because it'll be quicker if we just go on our own. Hopped in the car. She ended up driving. She thought she'll get in the driving seat. We drive out of the village. We're talking about this charity and the great work it's going to do. Come up the village. We've been in the car for less than 5 minutes. Turn onto this A road. Within 200 meters, there's a sharp corner. You're doing about 40 miles an hour. Sharp corner to the right, under some trees, ditches on either side. But it's an A road, so there's two.
And you've been through this road before?
Hundreds of times, every day. Around the corner, on the wrong side of the road, comes a blue BMW with the roof down, white.
Had to be a BMW.
Yeah, it had to.
It had to be a BMW.
Old guy with white hair. I could see it clear as day. And I just said, watch out. As soon as that happened, bang. Head on with us, wrong side of the road. He's on his phone. We flip over a number of times, land up upside down in a ditch, which, if you can imagine, means that the car is completely dark. Because the ditch is a V, the car is sort of a V. All the airbags have gone off, including they're encompassing both of our feet. It was incredibly lucky that we weren't too badly hurt. But there's screaming, there's blood, there's smoke, and you don't know what's happening at that point. So
what was your first thought?
My first thought was, I'm okay. I realized straight away, I think just the adrenaline, I was like, I'm fine, or I'm going to be fine for 5 minutes. I looked over and I saw Antonia hanging, screaming, and I could hear ringing in my head, and my ears, and she's dripping blood from her nose. And I thought we're in trouble because why is it dark as well? Whilst this ringing's happening, I undid her seatbelt, which was probably a bad idea because she dropped to the ceiling because we're upside down. I dragged her out through the back of our car because it was upwards, over a hedge into a field. The hedge turned out to be 8 foot tall. So I came at the back of the car, over the car and down, which again was kind of a bad idea because then the ambulance and the police struggled to get to us. But in that time, there was a doctor following the car behind. There was guys from vans that had helped and jumped us to make sure
So at
we're
this
okay.
point, you're in the ambulance.
No, we're in the field.
Oh, you're still in the field.
Yeah,
So where
yeah.
did the doctor come from?
There was a guy, the female doctor was following the car that crashed into us.
Just coincidentally. Ah, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah, so they both jumped. They ran up the back of our car, over the hedge, and helped us out for a bit. Then the ambulance came. The air ambulance came but didn't land. They didn't need us in the end. There's loads of police and there was fire and everything because he'd broken his arm. Where our car had gone over his bonnet, he'd broken his own arm as well. It's this guy. And so that was sort of putting you in the place of what happened in the event. We were not able to go back to our home. We were told, we didn't need to go to hospital, but after the ambulance had seen us, they said you need to go to stay with someone else because it's going to really hurt in about 6 hours when your adrenaline drops off. And so after all the vital signs were taken and we'd done our statements or whatever, we were taken back to our house to grab some clothes and stuff before going to go stay at her parents' house. But in our house, it was like a time warp because we were only leaving it for 25 minutes. So we'd left the windows open. We're in a village. Nothing was going to happen. The dogs there, I had a cup of tea on their side that was still steaming. My laptop was open. I think the TV was still on. It was like going into a time warp of your life. And that moment really triggered something in us where we said, we could have died today. Imagine if I had died or she had died or we'd both died. That was what really hit us hard. Imagine if we'd taken the dog like I wanted to. He would have died. How would that impact you as a 27-year-old couple with a 1-year-old dog that's just died? So we're taken to her parents' house. We told all the family and whatever. We were given 2 weeks off work. Our employers were amazing. 2 weeks off work to recover. We had physio. We went to A&E a lot just to try and get over it. But the biggest problem we had was we couldn't sleep because we kept playing it over and over in our head. And in those 2 weeks was the time span that gave us the opportunity to speak about, let's reset our lives. Let's try something.
But this is it. This is what I'm looking for. It's like, what was the trigger? That's why I'm asking you to take me through the day because potentially, that morning you was planning something for your workplace, something happens, and then you go home and then you have the accident, then you go home, but then you're saying something triggered in me. What was the moment? Take me through the moment where that trigger came into you and said, there's got to be more and we've got to be more and do more and have more.
It was walking back into that house, like I said, and everything was exactly how we'd left it. It was that moment when you just go, like, imagine if one of us had died. What would we do? I don't think you would carry on the same life. You would do something else. If someone said to you, there's very little risk in trying something completely different for a year or two, would you do it?
I would, and I'm also standing in the shoes of 99.9% of humanity where they don't think like that. So I know you mentioned your parents, and thank you to them. And there had to be something you saw, you heard, you felt that made you have that thought.
I've always wanted to do more, and we've always moved house every couple of years. I like to move. I like to try new stuff. I always want to go to new countries rather than go back to new places. So for me, it was an opportunity just to go, I'm going to do something new. And I didn't even really know what it was going to be. I just wanted to fulfill something. And because it was related to the job, I was off work, I couldn't work. It was, let's change and start a business. Let's start some sort of commerce.
And that was the thought you had in the back of your mind anyway.
Yeah.
I want to start a business. And now you're just like, life's too short. Let me start a business.
Yeah. And I tried loads of times to start loads of little things.
What were some things you tried before?
So
because everyone sees today, successful Freddie. But no one hears that part. So
one of the first things, which I do think that every child should try and do, is a gardening business, especially in the UK. Everyone's got gardens. And you need someone to mow your grass. Great Gardens was born.
How old was you? You said every
14.
child. So you was 14.
Yeah,
Okay.
£2 an hour. And I used to employ my brother to help me. So it was actually £1 an hour.
Yeah.
And we'd go and
At least you was giving him 50%.
Yeah, exactly. I was probably stupid. But we used to go and mow grass or, wash cars, whatever we could. Just leaf drop or flyer drop. I started a t-shirt business in my gap year where I was given about £100 from my godfather for I think finishing my A levels. And my 18th birthday. And I spent it on t-shirts. And I went to a festival, rugby festival, and tried to sell T-shirts. I tried to start a coffee business. We tried to start a interior design business online in the UK.
With your now fiance.
Exactly, yeah. And then obviously the one that profited us most in that time was the houses. So I was quite good at spotting a housing opportunity where it was a lovely house or a lovely opportunity to buy a rundown house on a really nice road. And so we would do that. So
Did you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Of course. Yeah.
That sounds like, what I read in there.
And then do all the work ourselves and then flip it using storytelling. So when you're selling it to the estate agent and to the buyer, you'd be like, imagine if you could bring your kids up here. It's a quiet neighborhood. Look out, the crime's zero. So all of these things were always about how can I make some money on the side of a job, which I feel like is just, I'm stuck doing.
You hit on something that you now do naturally, but you just mentioned that even when you was in real estate, you said, tell them a story. Where did you learn that from?
I really don't know where I learned storytelling. I think my feeling is everyone loves stories. And it's just become a buzzword, but we've always loved stories. I'm sure you've always told stories about stuff. If you want your mates to do something, you don't just go, should we go and watch some football at Wembley? You'd be like, imagine if we had some beers and we went here. And it's just, I think it's just something that I enjoy. I enjoy film, I enjoy books, I enjoy series, I enjoy conversation and debate. And so I think
that is very true. But it's one of those things that, like, until it becomes conscious, you don't realize it. So until I got into business, I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, everybody loves a story. So then, but like I always told stories to my friends, like you said, hey, let's go there, let's do this. Oh my God, you should have seen the pasta. But like when it came to, I was in construction before, it's like, just do the construction and move on. But I didn't naturally think that. So I'm curious how you already knew that in the real estate business.
I read a lot of books from about 16, 17. I was obsessed with 4-Hour Work Week and any book that was the Lean Startup, anything that was about how to take something and turn it into value.
Awesome. So you read the books.
Yeah. And I'm not a bookworm. I don't read tons of books, but I'm quite strategic with the ones I'll read. I'm quite specific. And even reading a book, it's done in a story fashion. It has to be.
Otherwise, no one will. Well, some of the most successful books have good stories. Some of the worst books have the worst stories, yet hence you can't read them.
My favorite book is The Alchemist, which has a
lovely book. Yeah.
Has a massive philosophical underpinning and undertone, but it's just a story. So most people read it and it's a story.
The author of that, Paulo Coelho, very successful author because he's so good at telling stories.
Exactly. And so I wasn't in real estate. We would just buy a house, renovate it, and sell it. But when you sell it to you have to sell it to the real estate agent to say, you're going to have to pitch this to prospects. You say, by the way, imagine this. You almost give it to them. You prime them. They haven't got to do their job. They just repeat what you said. And you put it in the listing yourself. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what does your brother do today? Because technically you did take him on the journey of entrepreneurial mission with you, mowing the lawns. Did he carry on with that?
He works for the most successful architect practice in the world. In central London. He also runs, I think he did the Berlin Marathon at the weekend in like 3 hours. Like he's just a force of nature. Yeah,
that's really good. That's really good. I was just curious. So now let's transition smoothly into, post car accident. You've already started loads of businesses, but then you decided to, initially, I don't know if you immediately decided, but you had no authority, meaning in the world, no brand, no leads, no followers, whatever it is. So take me through your journey. Okay, cool. Had the accident. How did you end up transitioning into podcasting, podcast guesting, starting a business? How did that happen?
So luckily, the business that I worked in, we would do 500 million monthly views on those websites that Future owned. Not using any paid marketing. It was all through storytelling, SEO, and personal branding. So I knew a thing or two when I got to Dubai that I could help people. I definitely had value. I'd worked on £1 billion projects, very, very senior in £1 billion projects by the age of 27. So I got here, and Tony had already started an online interior design business. So I was like, we're gonna go out and we're gonna pitch this stuff. But when we're doing it, we're gonna add a sort of a bit of business consulting on the back end.
Bath.
This is in Dubai. We've got to Dubai.
So you got to Dubai. It's 2022.
2022, September the 1st. And I would go out networking.
So 3 years and 1 month.
Yeah, exactly. I would go out in the same stripy shirt to networking all day, every day. 6 a.m., Dubai business breakfast, all the way through to, I can't remember the groups anymore. I don't go anymore, but they're all the groups, all day, Monday to Friday. And no one would take my business card. I was 27. How long have you been in Dubai for? 2 weeks. I don't care. You're brand new. No one would take my business card. No one would take meetings with me.
Who are these people that you're showing up to network with?
Anyone and everyone. I was trying anything to do with real estate, anything to do with business growth, consulting. Like we had the skills, I just couldn't put it into an offer. I couldn't
Which
make
a lot
myself
of people have that challenge. They're
massively.
like, I know I'm infinitely valuable.
Yeah.
I'm just not in the right room. Or
Exactly.
That's what they say. So then, yeah, carry on.
And for example, at a lot of networking, you don't have a chance to be like, by the way, I've done this, this, and this. They're just like, cool, let me look at your brand now. Let me look at your reviews. Let me look at your testimonials. If you're brand new, how does that work? It was impossible. So I thought to myself, what can I do? I started documenting what I was doing on LinkedIn, storytelling, telling my journey, the classic Gary V of document, don't create.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd start the podcast. Because if I start a podcast, I can come to you with an iPhone and a $30 lapel mic, because I couldn't afford a studio, stick it in a cafe, or I had a friend who had like a back office that no one used, or I'd come to your office and we'd record a quick podcast and no one could say no.
With the business owners.
With anyone I could get hold of. And so I started doing that, and that started to get attention. What was really interesting between LinkedIn and podcasting is people were asking me, how are you building authority? How are you building attention? And I was like, well, I've got billion-dollar experience doing this, but I was trying to promote this interior design business that Antonio was trying to run. I was the BD for that. That was my role. I went on a business ski trip in the following January. And on that trip, again, I had these business cards. These are all British entrepreneurs from a British business group in the Italian Alps that I'd gone to. I was trying to give these business cards out. And again, everyone was like, no, I'm not interested. But I saw on LinkedIn that you used to work for Future and you worked on this project that I heard of. Can I have some advice on that? So I gave advice. And then I came back from this ski trip and people were like, well, can I pay you for some of that advice? Can I pay you, by the way, just to help me talk about LinkedIn? Or can I pay you just to tell me how I can get on podcasts? Started signing a few
And at that
clients.
point, you wasn't getting on podcasts. You just had your own podcast.
I started my own podcast in December 22, but I realized very quickly that I was immediately invited on podcasts. So people were coming on mine, but also that people were going, oh, there's a new podcast in town. Do you want to come on mine? And so that together was massive. And I couldn't believe the power of that in conjunction with starting a LinkedIn page. What I've realized now subsequently, so about 18 months into that, I realized that podcasting, as you all know, is very expensive. Really expensive, really hard to grow.
People don't realize how I don't like the word expensive, but it's not cheap.
Exactly. It's one of those things that there's no guarantee of a payoff. Whereas with guesting, it's much easier. People come along.
Zero cost for the person.
Zero cost, and all you've got to do is put more effort in than everyone else. And I never say that I'm the best podcast guest, no way. But I'm probably more invested in what it takes to become a podcast guest, a good podcast guest, than most other people. Like I can look at someone and go, you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong. Or if someone's listening to me now and they go and check me out online and all my profiles don't agree with what I'm saying now, my brand doesn't agree, I've lost this opportunity. What was the point? The whole point of podcasting, for both of us, is a borrowed trust scenario. You're borrowing trust from my audience because I brought them to you, but you've hosted me so that I can do exactly the same for you. It's a
I had this question later on in topic number 3, positioning and long-form trust. So I'm just going to ask it now. It sounds like a no-brainer, but so many people confuse what a brand is, and you kept talking about a brand. So I want to ask this now, right? Define, what's the definition of a brand? Because most people think I have a brand because I post 6 times a day on Instagram.
No.
But what's the difference between posting and having a brand? Because most people think they have a brand when really they just post on Instagram.
Yeah. So posting is admin. I'm really, really clear on this. If you are posting on Instagram every day, you are just doing admin. You're not building anything. A brand is a reputation that precedes you. A brand is something that conjoins. Is that a word? Joins.
We'll make it.
Meshes.
We'll make it work.
Let's use meshes.
Yeah.
A brand is something that meshes everything you're doing together under one name or one label. So a personal brand, like I say, you should be able to go to an event. Say you're still in construction. In Dubai, if you've built your personal brand correctly, you should be able to walk into a construction event and people will know you before you even introduce yourself. That's what a brand can do. Is Coca-Cola the best tasting cold beverage in the world? No. Do we go and buy it once or twice a week without thinking? Probably. A lot of people probably do.
Obviously, you're the host of the Healthy Entrepreneur Podcast. So you're not drinking Coke apart from once or twice a week, but people are buying it 3 times a day.
There you go. Yeah, Coke Zero is very good. My PT tells me.
Yeah.
But that's what I think a brand is, and I think I'm very, very clear with our team that if someone says I've had a great day's work today, I've made 8 carousels from the podcast, or for clients or whatever it might be. I say, okay, let's review them. Let's see if they're any good. If only 7 of the 8 are good, have you done any work today? No, you haven't. You've done admin, which there is no value in. And as we go into this AI world, I think people need to be really clear on the fact that posting, which is, if it's not aligned with brand building, is admin. And we should not be doing admin because AI will take all of that.
So I have a question about that. Because going back to Gary Vee, jab, 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 left hook, put so much content out there that it's impossible not to succeed. So if that's the case, how does one kind of test the market? Because that's what the advice out there is. Look, just put out 100 posts, learn from them, check the numbers, and then someone's like just exhausted. They're getting like 1 like, and it's usually their auntie. So what's like? How do you differentiate between, look, I'm building a brand, I'm not doing admin, I'm building the brand, versus just putting out the content, hoping something sticks?
So what I think is really interesting is that the 100 pieces of content and then learn is brilliant. There's nothing wrong with that. Hormozy would say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You need consistency is the first fundamental that any algorithm will want. It's what any human will want. We all know this from running podcasts that it doesn't really matter if you drop off the algorithm. If your listeners want to find you, they'll find you. The point is that people are not looking at the data enough. So we know that Instagram changes its algorithm multiple times per day. We know that LinkedIn changes it less frequently. So let's focus on LinkedIn because it's more relevant, evergreen advice. If you post on LinkedIn 5 times a week, you are already within the top 10% of LinkedIn users, which is getting towards 500 million people. So you're already up there. But if you can't consistently achieve 10,000 plus impressions a week, you're not looking at the data. And if you're not looking at the data, you're probably not comparing your posts to other people's posts, because if the data says you're getting 1 like and 200 or 20 impressions a post, but you're doing the admin, that tells you something's wrong. So then the next thing you do is you look at other people and go, okay, well, what are they doing? And don't look at the guys like Chris Donnelly and Matt Gray and the guys right at the top. Don't look there. Look at the ones who are 1 step ahead of you. So someone who's getting 10 likes, copy them. When I say copy, I don't mean literally take. I'm saying steal
Model.
like an artist.
Yes, love that. That's actually what I thought. Steal like an artist. Brilliant. Yeah.
Model is a great way of putting it as well. Look at what they're doing and change it up. It's the same for anything. If you tell a story on a podcast and it's not clipped up or it doesn't get the most replayed on YouTube, don't tell it again for a couple of episodes. If you're a guest or your host, tell something else. Test everything. So for example, if you're running ads, I can't recommend highly enough installing Hyros, like the ads tracking software, because it gives you so much more data. If you're looking at Instagram, the insights in there are great. If you're looking at LinkedIn, there's loads of free things that will do the same thing. I think
strategically, I agree with you 1,000%. And a lot, like the purpose of this podcast is to help with the psychology, 80%.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you the truth. This is my clients. And you know what? Put my hand up. Sometimes it's me. The psychology of looking at the data is like people are allergic to it.
Yeah, sure.
So what's your advice there? Because like, do you naturally love data? Maybe because of your economics masters, or like, how do you kind of fall in love with the data? Because sometimes people are scared to look at the data.
Okay. I'm not a data guy. That's not, although I've had an analytics job, I've had a performance job, and it sounds like I am. I'm not.
Thanks for saying that, actually, because people will be like, oh yeah, he loves it.
No way. I don't like it. It's nothing worse than looking at a screen full of data. But the way that I get around it is, what is solving this job worth to me? Which I think is the only way I can get over anything. If you get up in the morning, the first thing I'll do is I'll go and take the dog for a walk. On that walk, towards the second half of the walk, I'll be thinking, what do I need to do today? And sometimes it's inevitable. You go, I don't want to do that. That's going to be effort. I've got to travel really far. I'm going to have to look at these really boring stats. What is that worth to me in a month's time if I fix it? Is it worth £1 million? Is it worth £10, dollars, dirham, whatever you want to go for? That's the only way I look at it. In the same way that if I've got a list of to-dos, I will order them in what they're worth to me to fix. And obviously, if the top one says rebrand the entire company, that's going to take ages, but it's worth a decent amount. You've got to then divvy it up. But the way I'd look at it is, what is it worth to you to fix this problem?
So it sounds like you're not necessarily action-driven, you're purpose-driven.
100%. Have to be. I think the best way to do it is to expand the time horizon. So if we're recording this in the middle of 2025, if you want to get to your revenue goal by Christmas, you probably haven't got time. What's the point in thinking you do? 4 or 5 months, 3 or 4 months from now. If you look at this time till next summer, You've got 12 months. It's inevitable you're going to hit it. If you
And
put
that's the
effort in.
thing, you know, I didn't come up with this quote, but people underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years and they overestimate what they can achieve in a year.
Exactly. And no one expands their time horizon. I literally did a video on this morning for my YouTube, and it was 30 things that I've learned now I've turned 30. Like
Nice.
30 things that I wish I'd told myself when I was 20. And one of them is literally exactly that. Like right now, I'm very much focused on what can I achieve before I'm 31? In actual fact, why don't I look at what I can achieve before I'm 35? 5 years from now, what could I do? I think it's unrealistic to think that I could do anything other than achieve my goals. And that's the way that I try to run my mind.
And I found that that's what, you know, obviously I'm born and raised in London. In the West, we think like that. In the East, because I also saw you went to South Korea, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of lessons there that will need a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But they think on a 100-year horizon.
Yeah.
And that's why they're kind of like successful, because the CEO is not even wanting to get the instant gratification himself. He knows he might not even see the result, but he's building on a 100-year scale. So then let's come back to branding and, you know, what you're good at. So then what's the... So you started with no audience, no authority. You gave us a story. By the way, I really respect that, because 99% of people are not going to go out there in Dubai and network and try and put their cards out. Reminds me of another guest I had on this show, landed here from the US, came into a building like this in Business Bay and just started on the first floor, knocked on every door, got rejected.
Yeah.
And it takes a certain person to do that. And clearly from your backstory, we could see that, you know, I don't know if that was you all the time, but it is you, right?
Sure.
And you transition that. So then where do we start now? What are the first moves for someone listening to this going, well, it's easy for him because now he's got a brand. Where are we starting? What are the first moves to build a powerful personal brand from scratch?
The first thing you need to do is think about your positioning. So if I was going to put you on stage right now, if you're listening to this, in front of 3,000 people, what do you want them to leave that arena hall thinking that you're known for? That's the first thing that I would think about. And if you can't think, okay, I'm not sure what I want to be known for yet, you have to go and look at what the purpose is going to be. So in 25 years' time, in fact, I've done this for quite a long time now. On a Friday, I will write an email to myself with any problems that I've had this week. Could be anything, personal, business, whatever. And then I will write back to it over the weekend or on a Monday as if I'm an 80-year-old man. Because as an 80-year-old man, I'm probably not, in my mind, I'm not concerned about money. I've had a lovely life. I'm still alive at 80. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to be embarrassed about anything. You know, that 80-year-olds will say to you, just do it. And literally, I'm 80. No one cares. It's idiots all the way up. Don't worry. So that will help you get over a number of these things. Give yourself advice as if you're 80. You could get AI to do this as well for you if you don't want to do it yourself.
That is actually groundbreaking. And honestly, I had to shut my mouth and not interrupt you. I'll tell you why it's groundbreaking. Because the second part, if you're in the self-development space, you've heard it multiple times. Think about your being 80. What you just said there is like, I don't just think about it. It's not just in my head. I actually like do it. I write an email to myself, which by the way, allows you to become objective. And then you don't reply to it immediately. You wait till the weekend where you're in a different mood, different state. You've done something different. You're feeling very different. And you're kind of like replying to it. And it's almost like you become your own coach.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think what's really, really important to think about as well is when you're starting a personal brand, let's assume that you're starting a business at the same time. It's very different if you're already doing millions and millions and you just want to have a personal brand to reduce your cost to acquire customers. That's a different kettle of fish. Let's say you're absolutely starting off. What's really important to think about is that we grow into puddles, lakes, and oceans. So if you think about someone like Ali Abdaal, so he started his puddle. He became an expert in how to pass this one specific medical exam to get into medical school. That's what his personal brand was around. That was his puddle. He then went into a slightly bigger area, which was more around productivity, how to get more out of your life. So that's a lake. These are kind of fluffy because it's what he was into, but it's fine. And then his ocean is very much now YouTube and a much, much broader sense of productivity. The point there is that if I start talking about productivity now, no one trusts me. I've got no credibility around that because I haven't built the little things up. But for me, if my lake is making people money on LinkedIn, my ocean becomes, okay, let's use podcast first because podcasting can incorporate all social medias, all content, all storytelling. Maybe one day my ocean becomes storytelling or branding or whatever it is at that top level. But when you're first starting out, just think about having the confidence of an 80-year-old and the wisdom of an 80-year-old and only needing to think about fulfilling what a puddle needs to know. So you're on that stage in front of 3,000 people. You only need to be known for one small thing in one small area. And so if you're a coach or if you're a leader, just think about what solution you can give to people. That's what you should be known for. The solution that I like at the moment, that I'm really, really proud of, is borrowing trust. I really want to get to the bottom, the crux of what is the trust equation. What makes me trust you and you trust me? And then how do I increase that, or how does it decrease? So that can all be encompassed into podcast guesting and how we tell stories. My underpinning vibe can be around borrow trust. What does that even mean? So I think I've gone a long way around that answer, but I would probably say to start with, just think about how you can solve one problem and be known for something small enough that people will believe you're good at it.
So in terms of, and by the way, you didn't go long way. When you do go on these tangents, when we all do, it brings the real gold below the answer. So thank you so much for that. I like that. I even wrote it down. You know, you got a puddle, you got a lake, you got an ocean. So thank you for sharing that. And the official answer was positioning.
Yeah.
And we've heard that before. So I want someone to listen to this and actually have an actionable thing that they can walk away with. So what is, looking back at your journey to getting your positioning, your puddle and your lake, you probably tried a lot of things, a lot of them didn't work. What are the top 3 things that are the easiest to implement, most likely to help someone succeed in starting their personal brand or scaling it if they've already got one? And that's the least costly. Because you also said at the beginning you didn't have money, but you got, resourceful. You put a mic here, iPhone.
Yeah.
So what are the top 3 things you would?
First thing I would say is probably look at trends. So look at what's working right now. So say you've already got your positioning right and you want to test something. Not necessarily right, but you want to test, because we know that we need to make sure we're testing this stuff in the market, not in our minds. Because I can say I'm an expert on pencils. If I start putting content about that, no one's going to follow that, probably. So it doesn't work.
So look at trends.
Look at trends. Really important to look at trends, because right now, if you'd have picked up LinkedIn a year and a half ago, that would have gone quickly. If you look at Snapchat or TikTok now, you probably would do better in those places. Another thing that's really, really important with positioning is just having conversations. So you've got the trends of where to go. Then you have a conversation with someone. You can speak to your nearest and dearest. You could speak to your friends, your family. But also, when you're starting to build a personal brand and you're posting anywhere, you should be able to get in front of people. All of these platforms, all of these networking events, anywhere you go to meet people, as soon as you say what you do, you'll get a reaction, whether it's likes or whether it's a smile, whether it's a question. When I used to do the interior design stuff, it was minimalist Scandinavian design we would do. And in Dubai, when you say that to someone, they go, oh, okay, is that popular? Because it's not a thing here. And I knew that the positioning was wrong. I knew, but I didn't have enough understanding of what am I going to do next. So it took me those 6 months of just trying to understand, okay, this is where my change will be. So definitely have the conversations.
So by talking to people, you found out what didn't work, which allowed you to come into what does work.
Exactly. So those 2 things are really important. And
so
then,
that's, just before you move on to the next one, for someone listening to this, because I actually have like people in my mind when I say these things. For
give me an
people that are
example.
listening, right? That also means having 0 expectations up front, be willing to kind of speak to people. The presupposition, at least I'm presupposing, that means go and speak to people without immediately having commission breath or sales breath and just trying to like talk to them and say, hey, here's what I do, and seeing what they say and not expecting an immediate kind of sign the dotted line. That's what you're saying?
when I knocked on all of those doors in that building, like your friend did or the last guest did, how many do you think said yes to a consultation? I say I knocked on over 100 doors, but call it 100.
I feel like it's going to be 0, but let's say based on market like conversion, probably 3.
0.
0.
You're right. You got it right. So 0. But that activity is about collecting no's. Because I didn't say the same thing 100 times. I said it ever so slightly differently. It was the same product, but you approach it differently. And so I was going out to collect 100 no's. This was right at the end of when I was like, I'm going to probably change this niche.
Have you read the book, Go for No?
Never.
Oh, cool. So that's what the book is about.
Oh, no way. Okay, collecting no's.
Go for No, yeah. That's
Really?
what the book's called, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like, what's your no to yes ratio? And by the way, that's how I run my business. I don't run my business on yeses. I run them on what's my no to yes ratio. So basically, that means you have to find out your data, which, by the way, this is why this conversation is perfect, because you have to know your data. If you don't know your data, you don't know your no to yes ratio. So how many people do we have to, let's say, DM or message or get in front of? Okay, great. That's like the leads. And then you go, okay, cool. How many of those did we have conversations with? And then how many of those conversations ended up in a call, and how many on the call said not yes, no, until we got to a yes. So now let's say, I'm not going to do the maths, I'm just going to cut this short. Let's say we messaged 180 people, 18 people had a conversation, 4 people booked the call, 1 said yes. Cool. If I want 10 clients, just 1,800 messages.
Exactly. But you're looking at the data, right? So if they all said no, then you're like, okay, is it wise to then call more people? Or do I take this and go, okay, I've got to stop at some point?
We'd ask. I mean, the ideal, I want to let you speak. I'm just going to let you speak.
Well, I was just going to say, at some point you have to say, okay, let's try this slightly differently. If you call 400, 500 people and they all say no, something's probably wrong. It's either the list is wrong, or it's what you're saying, or it's the offer. That's when you just look at the data and try different variants.
And in my experience, you just, if they've said no, you just kind of revert them, ask, listen, I really appreciate your time. What did you have to hear, see, or feel from me that would have turned that into a yes, if at any point? And after they feel like they're off the hook, they'll tell you, and then you loop back around and go, okay, great, I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. For half the price.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a third one I would say, just to finish your point on the position,
Yes.
I would say, this is from a podcast point of view. Think about the angles that you could come at this from. So with positioning, you could think about it in a number of ways. So, you know, say you want to be the fitness guy. You've probably had this as well. I'm the fitness guy. I want to come on a podcast and talk about fitness. I help entrepreneurs build a 6-pack or lose fat, whatever it might be. They know that the trends that they can use are get their tops off on Instagram, whatever. They know that's going to work. If someone comes to you and they want to be on the podcast and they say exactly that, I'm the fitness guy, I help entrepreneurs lose body fat, you can't have them on, because what are you going to speak about for an hour? Or you do have them on and you can never have another fitness person on again, because they're all going to say exactly the same thing. Whereas if I come at it, say I'm a fitness guy and I say I do exactly the same job, but my angle is I help you to build a long-term happy relationship with your wife while staying in good shape. That's a different angle, because then in the podcast, my angle allows me to speak about relationships, stories, coping with stress, also food and fitness and whatever. But most people will just go for I'm going to go for the really broad positioning of fitness guru. And so I think that's really important. So I said trends. I said looking at, what did I say? I said trends. I said...
So look at trends, have conversations.
Have conversations to validate your positioning, and then think about the angles. Because the angles are what allows you to then vary your conversations. And whenever we talk to someone whether they're doing 10 grand a month or 2 million a month, and they're talking about podcast guesting, it's always angles. We had a guy that was really big in the funnel space. He literally did 2 million a month, but it was costing him a lot of money in ads every month. And we said, okay, let's cut that cost by doing podcasts, getting you on podcasts strategically around the country. This is in the US. And so he managed to reduce his cost. But no one wants a funnel guy to come on their podcast, because everyone talks about funnels. We can talk about funnels now. We probably both have funnels. Are we experts? No, but we both have money through them, so therefore we can speak about them to some degree. Everyone listening's probably got a funnel. So how does this guy, who's got millions of followers, makes millions of dollars, how is he going to speak about it? Because it's the same thing. He has to find his angles. So then he finds his angles through what's different with him. So he is married. He's a Muslim. He's into fitness. You can pull all these strings that allow him then to build out the angles which make him different. And so I'd also think about sort of mood boarding or mind mapping, all the different angles that you could have that position you as not only something that's interesting and solves a problem, that will work with the current trends, but also differentiates you like mad.
So what's coming up for me is it sounds like just have substance, which, by the way, I know it sounds maybe even arrogant, but 99% of the world don't have substance. Like, you go and speak to someone at Starbucks, the barista, it's like, hey, how's your day? They're like, what do you want? So what you're really saying is just have substance, just have something to you more than the thing that you're trying to sell, so that people buy you into this. Because like they say, facts tell and stories sell. And that's actually why I probably spent more time getting your story than getting the facts from you. Because I promise you this, right? If someone's listening to this, they're going to buy into you. And they're going to go, you know what? Freddie's the man. And I want to find out how to be a guest on podcasts. So I'm going to reach out to him. If you sat here for the whole whatever time we've spent here, and all you talked about was the guesting on podcasts. People was like, I heard that yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, I even listened to a YouTube on video before this YouTube video, and I'm gonna listen to the YouTube video next. It's about that. So basically, it sounds like just have substance, have something to you, sell your story, not the product.
Yeah.
And people will buy into the product.
Always. Why do you think personal branding is so big right now? Because we're just so done with being scammed online and being given guarantees. Like you see guarantees of businesses now where they say, if you don't make your money back, we'll mow your grass for 2 years. Like, no, you're not going to do that. It means I'm never going to get my money back. That guarantee is not real. And so I think the way that business is going is that we are only going to buy purely on trust. These guarantees, these bonuses, these value stacks, I don't think they're going to work in two.
So this will probably lead us into our last subject. Where are people going wrong with this? Because again, honestly, I'm listening to you, I'm going, oh my God, like we know this, we've heard it, you know. So where are people going wrong? Because like they know that the high level information, build trust, know your angle, get your positioning. Like there's probably 3 people I can think of right now that are trying to get their positioning right. They're having conversations and they're building trust, but they're getting it wrong. So where are people getting this wrong, and how can they turn eventually when they get that positioning and get on a podcast, which is what your speciality is, how can they actually generate cash from that?
So what does trust mean to you?
I have to have seen a track record, like a perceived value, like, oh, that person I know paid him. That's like the easiest way to get my trust. It's like if I respect somebody and then I see that person give this guy a testimonial, I'm like, I don't even have to do my checks here.
Okay, so how important is that testimonial versus you actually liking the other guy in the first place? Because that's a referral. This is a testimonial. There's 2 different tracks there.
Testimonial is probably more important. Like I'll give you a quick example. Alex Hormody just did $100 million in a day.
Yeah.
Obviously it took him 3 years, but you know, it's still $100 million in a day. He shared a case study from one of his clients. He's like, this woman does branding. So I like print screened the page, went onto her Instagram. I have not seen any of her reels, and I booked a sales call. Like I don't even know who she is. It's really funny. I was on the call with the sales guy. I'm like, sorry, what's the lady that owns this company's name? I swear to you, this is not even a made up story. I actually said to the sales guy, what's her name? I promise you, I probably have seen loads of reels on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, going, I'll help you build your brand. And maybe they were even saying things that made me think, that's really good. But I did not book a call. So that's what trust means to me. Like I have to see somebody I respect kind of plug that person.
Okay.
So I need to know, like, and trust them based on their track record or someone I already respect.
Perfect. So this is really interesting to me. I just think trust is so interesting. So I've been trying to create an equation around what trust is. But the point to me is that say we all have 100 points of trust. So say you trust me with 100 points and I trust you with 100 points. How easy is it, or what do I have to do to lose a point? All I have to do is show up on a reel in a slightly different way, or show up through a person or a friend of yours with slightly different track record or vibe, or come to a podcast and speak poorly, or not be, I was going to say not be on time, but I was not on time today. Brilliant.
Well, you was on time.
Okay, I was on time.
But you know what? That tells me something about your rules, though. For you, on time is before time.
Big time.
Because technically you was on time. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
But you was like, I'm late. I'm
But
like,
on time is late for me.
Really? So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So think about all these points. This is all I think about. So Hormozy, he doesn't lose and he doesn't decay his trust, because you see him, we all see him on YouTube, all the platforms, I'm not going to list them, at the same level, the same velocity, the same consistency and the same quality all the time. And you also see him borrowing trust from people. So I know he's just recorded with the Impulsive guys, so Logan Paul and stuff. He's been on all these podcasts recently. The point is that his 100 points of trust are always there. They don't go down to 90 and back up again. Have you ever seen a scandal come out about Hormozy? Have you ever seen a bad testimonial? It's because his trust is at 100. Now imagine that, of course, we don't have 100 points of trust. You start with 0. You gradually go up and you gradually come back down again. But the aim is to get to 100. That's where people are going wrong. They think you should trust me until I prove you wrong. But in fact, we don't start like that. Most of us start with, I do not trust you. Prove me right. And I think that is where people are going wrong with trust. It doesn't really matter to me what social media you post on. It doesn't matter where you go and what you do. All it is fundamentally is how you can deliver a message and how you can build rapport with people at scale, at mass, build an audience at scale. But that's not going to work if you can't build the trust across the whole thing. And that's why I'm so obsessed with trust.
So what's the move? So that's where they're going wrong. They assume trust.
Yeah.
So what's their first move to start building the trust so that they can start building their personal brand, so that they can get invited to more interviews, so that they can actually make money? No stress, no pressure.
What should you be trusted for is the first thing.
So decide on positioning. Back to positioning.
Well, positioning is what you want to be known for. But then behind that is what you do, right? So you could be known for anything, but then you have to do something behind it. Those two must link. They must link inherently. And you must have a good service, you must be who you say you are. It sounds so simple, dude. Just do a really good job, show everyone that you're doing a really good job, and continue to do that into the world more and better. Exactly as Hormozy would say.
So is it safe to say then, define your puddle, follow through on the puddle that you defined, which is your positioning, which means do the thing that you said you wanted to do, and do it again and again and again, and build from there, basically. Yeah. Is there anything you would add to that?
All I would add to that is that we only speak in 3 different ways, right? We speak in tactics, which is the thing I try not to talk about, which is like how exactly I would...
Same here, that's why I actually avoided the tactics.
Strategies, which is kind of what we've touched on here, and then philosophies. So philosophies is you should borrow trust. The strategy is use podcasts to become a guest. The tactic is come onto a podcast, speak like this, do this, speak to the guest, whatever. That's how you do it. The point is that all we need to do is just speak or think about our philosophies first. What are the philosophies that we want to be known for? What do we actually do as a business? If you're going to have a business that is fundamentally a one and done thing, you're going to really struggle to build trust because you've got no incentive to keep someone. The point for me is always just how do you build up enough criteria, enough outcome, enough presence that people feel safe around you? Because if that happens, your brand will exponentially grow.
Got it. So my second to last question before I ask you the question, it's the last question. Bit of a tongue twister. Is this, because naturally you are the podcast guy, you say, listen, I can get you on a podcast. So we know that people just email people like, hey, can I get on your podcast? Then they get a no. So what's the tip, trick, or a strategy there to get people to get on more podcasts when they're just getting rejected or they're not even trying, to be honest?
So getting on podcasts is not the hard bit. This is the sort of part we're trying to say. We don't put people on podcasts. That's not what our business does. I don't think getting onto podcasts is difficult. People think it is, and to be consistent is difficult. You want to do 2 hours a month minimum. But what's really, really important to think about is once you get on, how do you perform? And then what do you do afterwards? And that, like I said, comes down to positioning. It's your business. For us, it's the 6 Ps, right? So it comes down to positioning, profile, posting, podcast, profit, performance. If I don't profit from going on podcasts, why would I do it? If you don't profit from building a brand, why would you do it? You have to think about it in a complete sequence. And so getting on podcasts is not that hard. You can just find on Raphonic or Listen Notes how highly ranked a podcast is. I wouldn't go on a podcast that's less than top 10% globally for audios and downloads. Reach out. There's a number of ways you can reach out. I think we reached out to you on email or DM or something.
Email's the way, yeah.
Find their brand, but we've also validated you as a good podcast that we would like to talk to. We'd like you as a person. That then means we've frameworked you. Then you go on a podcast and you perform as best as you can. So you work through your stories, you work through your positioning, everything. And then afterwards, what you do is you try to help the host as much as possible to grow that episode. Do that 2 to 3 times a month, and you will really struggle to not grow a brand.
So you basically frame it in that person's self-interest.
Exactly, yeah.
Great. My final one and done question actually just came up from this. I want to plug the video that you recorded this morning, your top 30 lessons by 30. Just give me the top 3.
The top 3 lessons. Okay, I'm going to have to go back to that one I said earlier, which was about, you don't have to remind me what I said earlier, but that's the number one thing I really think was important. It was around, don't worry about what other people think of you.
Okay,
that's cool. A massive one for me. Do not worry. Do not be embarrassed. Embarrassment is good. Another one would be look after your body, move as much as possible every day, never be sedentary. So that's 10,000 steps, that's going to the gym, working out, whatever it is. And then I think another one is be very careful who you are around, who you spend your time around.
So your network is your net worth.
100%. I mean, all these sayings, environment dictates performance. But the point is, I'm so careful who I bring into my network because I know they can have a massive detrimental effect or too much of a positive effect where you're starting to reach for billionaire status when what's the point in that? That's ridiculous. So Yeah.
Plus, we'll plug the whole 30 lessons in the descriptions of this
Thank you.
show.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Freddie, listen, it's been amazing. It's been a pleasure having you. I'm so glad that you got to share your wisdom and your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been
Take care.
awesome. Cheers.